Hello, YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have 12 articles for you. All the URLs are in the description of the video for your convenience. The first one here is off of, well, let's see, what is it off of? Neon Nettle. It says, Putin declares emergency as North Korea missile was heading to Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin has placed his country on high alert following North Korea's ballistic missile launch, which failed because it was heading towards Russia. Joint Chiefs of Staff in South Korea have confirmed that a medium-range missile, otherwise known as the KN-17, launched from northeast at 49 degrees by an area near Pyeongchang, according to Fox News. The Hermit State realized their mistake as officials panicked and destroyed the device before it could reach Russia. The news provider states if the ballistic missile that flew to the northeastern region had not failed, it would have been a harbor point or a Russian territory. It is for this reason that North Korea intentionally destroyed the missile. Daily Star reports SE Daily quotes a source as saying the launch target was different from the previous direction, adding, in the past, we fired 89 to 90 degrees and the projectile fell off the East Sea. But the angle of this shot was 49 degrees. The claim is backed up by Putin's authorities, who Daily Star Online reported as saying the country was placed on high alert following the launch, with particular focus on the eastern side. Russian Chairman of Defense and Security, Viktor Ozerov, has said the decision was due to a growing tension in the North Korean peninsula, adding the air defense of the Russian Federation in the Far East has been put on high alert. We control the airspace in the zone of responsibility of the Russian Air Forces. Joint U.S. and South Korean forces have flexed their muscle in an aggressive display of military power, sure to heighten tensions on the Korean border to unbearable levels. If these shocking claims are true, it serves as massive blow to ties between allies, North Korea and Russia, with the prospect of an all-in, all-out World War III hanging on a knife edge as Crazy Kim tries to build a missile capable of striking the U.S. It was reported following the failed launch that the missile had traveled nearly 50 miles high and more than 20 miles far before breaking up. The move angered U.S. President Donald Trump, who blasted the communist state for its latest action and resulted in his armada steaming toward Korea waters as a stern warning to Kim. Kim Jong-un used the annual Day of the Sun parade in Pyongyang to make a chilling display of the country's burgeoning nuclear power and military might. Trump also said the launch disrespected the wishes of China, adding, this development comes amid today's warning from North Korea that it will carry out a nuclear test at any time. And there is some video in this if you would like to pull it up to take a look at that. The next article is off of Liberty Writers. Well, as soon as the hamster gets it up here on the screen. What this Russian just revealed is the most horrific plot to destroy America ever. Victor Bertes, colonel and defense ministry spokesman, just claimed that Putin has been burying sleeper nukes off the coast of America. Bertes then said that in the event of war, that the bombs will be detonated and will cause a tsunami that could devastate the coastal well, hamster is jumping around here. Okay. They could devastate the coastal U.S. Devastate the coastal U.S., period. Bertinez admits that Russia will outspend America on defense, and there is some video in that if you want to pull it up. It says Bertinez made this claim as an interview with Russian paper Kosmolokia, or however it's pronounced, Prava, then said that Russia is developing an asymmetrical response to America that would make sure that both countries would be destroyed. Our asymmetrical response is nuclear warheads that can modify their course and height so that no computer can calculate their trajectory. Or, for example, the Americans are deploying their tanks, airplanes, and special forces battalions along the Russian border. We are quietly seeding the U.S. shoreline with nuclear mole missiles. They dig themselves in and sleep until they are given the command. Oh, it seems I've said too much, he interrupted himself by saying, before adding, I should hold my tongue. This is not good. We need to protect ourselves from foreign threats. The next article is off World Journalism. And it says, Trump says he's willing to meet North Korean leader face to face. President Donald Trump indicated in a new interview that he would throw precedent to the wind if it meant resolving the crisis with North Korea. During an interview Monday with Bloomberg News, Trump said he would be willing to meet with reclusive North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. If it would be appropriate for me to meet with him, I would absolutely. I would be honored to do it, Trump said, if it's under the right circumstances, but I would do that. For many years, North Korea has been developing its capacity to launch ballistic missiles and has a nuclear weapons program. Most analysts believe that Kim's goal is to create a nuclear arsenal. Trump has taken a hard line against North Korea, threatening increased diplomatic pressure and economic sanctions. Trump's administration officials have said all options, including military action, are on the table. Most political people would never say that, but I'm telling you, under the right circumstances, I would meet with him. We have breaking news, Trump said. Trump's comments contradicted those of Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, who was asked by CBS if he could foresee a scenario in which Trump would meet with Kim. Not right now, I can't, Priebus said. Probably not. I don't see that happening. We're going to need a lot of cooperation among the region and our leaders around the world in order to get this person under control. In an interview that aired Sunday on CBS, Trump was asked to characterize Kim. I really, have no comment on him. People are saying, is he sane? I have no idea. I can tell you this, a lot of people don't like it when I say it, but he was a young man of 26 or 27 when he took over from his father, when his father died. He's dealing with obviously very tough people, in particular the generals and others, Trump said. And at a very young age, he was able to assume power. A lot of people, I'm sure, tried to take that power away, whether it was his uncle or anybody else, and he was able to do it. So obviously, he's a pretty smart cookie, Trump said. Trump added in the CBS interview that his administration will not do what others before him have done, let the problem of North Korean aggression continue. We have a situation that we cannot let. It's been going on and on for a long period of years continue. And frankly, this should have been done and taken care of by the Obama administration, by the Bush administration. Should have been taken care of by Clinton, he said. The darker tone of Trump's thoughts about North Korea was reflected in an interview with Examiner. North Korea weighs on me, but we have to be prepared for the worst, Trump said. We have to be prepared to do what we have to do. We cannot allow this to go on. In that interview, he described Kim as very threatening, saying terrible things, and people can't do that. The next article is off of BizPac Review. Secure our borders. Illegal immigrant charged with rape, murder of New Orleans mother. An illegal criminal immigrant who was previously in federal custody 2 years ago, has been charged for raping and murdering a mother in New Orleans, Louisiana. Erwin Gomez Colon, a 31-year-old illegal immigrant from Honduras, has been charged with second-degree murder charges after he allegedly raped, strangled, and stabbed Nancy Yahara Gonzalez Rodriguez to death, according to WWL-TV. This is not the first time Gomez Colon has been in trouble either. Gomez Colon was charged by the New Orleans Police Department with first-degree rape, second-degree kidnapping, and domestic abuse battery involving strangulation back in April of 2015. Unfortunately, the New Orleans Police Department was forced to drop the charges because of inconsistencies in the statements by the alleged victim. Before both cases of assault, Gomez Colon was detained by ICE in Texas in 2014 for being in the United States illegally, but it was administratively dismissed, according to ICE workers familiar with the case. Today, police say that Gomez Colon raped, strangled, and stabbed Gonzalez Rodriguez more than 20 times, which ultimately led to her death. Under new ICE policies enacted under the Trump administration, the agency will place a detainer on an illegal immigrant who is arrested. The detainer will then notify local and state authorities of the situation, and that illegal immigrant arrested must be handed over to ICE prior to being released from their custody. Conversely, policies under the Obama administration were so lax that it allowed illegal immigrants like Gomez Colon to remain in the country illegally once they were released from police custody. In 2015, ICE officials were only required to place a detainer on illegal immigrants. They were not required to notify local and state authorities to hand illegal immigrants over. Unfortunately, ICE does have a detainer on fortunately, ICE does have a detainer on Gomez Colon now. If Gomez Colon is let out of New Orleans Police Department's custody, ICE will be notified so that they can pick him up and arrange his deportation if he is not charged for his violent act against Gonzalez Rodriguez. The next article I have is off BizPack Review. It says, it was an invasion. How Hungary managed to erase illegal immigration in just a few months. When other countries welcomed refugees with open arms, Hungary decided it was time to eradicate illegal immigration at any cost. The country succeeded, but that success damaged relations with the European Union in the process. Hungary's second border fence has just been completed in the southern town of Ashalton. The 96-mile-long, 14-foot-tall double line of defense doesn't look too intimidating from a distance. Go a little closer and you'll notice several layers of razor wire capable of delivering electric shocks, cameras, heat sensors, and loudspeakers ready to tell migrants they're about to break Hungarian law if they as much as touch the fence. Add a few hundred military officers and border hunters, and it's virtually impossible to break. Close to every police officer in the country is part of a rotation to make sure that the grounds are covered at all times. Temporary military bases have been set up by the border to house them while they do their rotation. More than 1,000 volunteers will receive generous salary and benefit packages when they deploy as border hunters after extensive training. The area surrounding the fence is closed off for the public. Visitors need to apply for access in advance, and photos of guards and Serbian side are strictly prohibited for security purposes. If a migrant is lucky enough to make it across, local guards patrol the surrounding area around the clock. The ones who are caught are arrested and dropped off on the Serbian side. They don't even get a chance to apply for asylum unless they do so at a transit zone where they are held in housing containers while their cases get processed. Prime Minister Viktor Orban wants to make it impossible for uninvited guests to make it across the border, no matter the number they arrive in, and it appears as though he has succeeded. They don't even try, a local border guard tells the Daily Caller News Foundation. We haven't had a Syrian in 6 months. Rewind back to September of 2015, and there's a completely different picture. Thousands of migrants streamed across the border every day as they made their way north to Austria, Germany, and Scandinavia. It was an invasion. Torosakia, the mayor of Asoklam, told the DCNF, illegal immigration is a crime in a normal country. It's not a normal thing to break into a country. Torosakia decided to start a war on illegal immigration. He wanted a fence, and the government agreed. The real public mood was, hang on, this is not good. You should do something. Zoltán Kovács, a spokesman for the Hungarian government, told the DCNF, you should at least have the ability to handle what's going on. While Hungary is far from the final destination for most migrants, its location along the so-called Balkan route made it a natural pit stop for hundreds of thousands of people pursuing a life in Western Europe. By the mid-year, it was well beyond 100,000 people who care across us, Kovács said. In the beginning of September, there were days when 10,000 came. The Orban administration looked at a number of measures before deciding on the fence. The results were staggering. The influx went down from 6,353 one day to 870 the next. Illegal border crossings were steadily below 40 per day throughout the rest of the month. It was not known what the most effective way to handle illegal border crossings is, like it or not, and that's the point we always make. There is no more effective way to stop illegal border crossings than building a physical barrier, Kovács told the DCNF. You might not like it. It's not a nice thing, but the only way to stop illegal border crossings is to first build a fence, man it, equip it, and also, in parallel, build up your capabilities in terms of legal confines, legal circumstances to be able to handle what is coming. Kovács described the fence as an act of solidarity toward the rest of the EU. By stopping migrants from entering the country, Hungary argues it keeps immigrants out of the entire 28-nation bloc. The government expected other countries to offer assistance, but the help never came. Instead, we received only political barrage and charges that we are inhumane and stuff like that, Kovács said. The measures have cost around 700 million euros, which is $763 million, according to Kovács' rough estimates. He believes the bill would have been a lot more if the country didn't take action, as the cost of housing and deporting migrants quickly add up. The real price it had to pay was instead of a diplomatic nature. Just before the fence went up in 2015, EU voted in favor of imposing migrant quotas for each member. The idea was to erase the pressure on the frontline states, particularly Greece and Italy. Hungary was slated to host 1,294 migrants as part of the deal, but the government refused. Instead, it joined Slovakia to take legal action against the EU. We would like to retain the elements of sovereignty, which are there by law, and we are against a stealth way of taking away elements of your sovereignty, Kovács said. Hungary argues that the four freedoms of the EU project, the free movement of goods, capital, services, and people, can only be ensured if the outer borders are protected. You cannot defend the achievement of Schengen from within. It has to be done at the borders, Kovács said. While the international reaction to Orban's immigration policies has been anything but good, the people of Hungary have shown great support. Orban announced a referendum on the quotas in February of 2016, saying he would openly campaign for a no vote. The referendum had no legal implications for the EU, but a successful result for the Orban administration would still send a strong message to liberal allies. Hungarians almost unanimously backed Orban, with 98.4% voting no. The voter turnout of just above 44% made the results invalid, but the crushing support for Orban's agenda solidified Hungary's image as a rebel within the EU. It's common sense, Kovács said of the results. Many say that what we have in Hungary is something like xenophobia, but it's certainly not true. While the government was unable to use the results for legislative action, it continued to impose immigration measures. The Hungarian parliament passed legislation in March to put all asylum seekers in container housing along the border to await legal processing. The move caused outcry among international aid organizations, with Amnesty International calling it a flagrant violation of international law. Rounding up all men, women, and children seeking asylum and detaining them months on end in container camps is a new low in Hungary's race to the bottom on asylum seekers and refugees, Gary van Gilk, Amnesty's deputy director for Europe, said in a statement. The government, on the other hand, calls the detention label misleading, since the asylum seekers have the option to leave and return to their home countries at any point. It's misleading. It's not detention. Most definitely not in respect to penalty element of it, Kovacs said. A number of countries are allegedly prepared to issue an ultimatum for Hungary and Poland this fall to either accept more refugees or leave the Union. The feud with the EU has escalated in other areas as well. EU has threatened to file a lawsuit against the country after it moved to regulate foreign-funded universities, particularly one established by Hungarian billionaire George Soros. Despite the tense situation, the Orban administration remains positive toward the European project's original purpose. We believe that the detention that the founding fathers have given to the European Union at that time was good, Kovacs said. Now, when you bump into a problem and a crisis, you should go back to the founding fathers. That's what the U.S. usually does, and it works. The next article is off of NBC News, and it says, worse than Ebola, U.S. not preparing for next bio threat. And this is in little tiny type, so we're going to blow it up a little bit, get it big enough that I can read it. The U.S. government is slacking off on preparing for the next big pandemic for biological terrorism attack, and is not only endangering its citizens, but also missing out on a great opportunity to score political points, experts said Monday. Protecting the United States from the next pandemic of killer flu or from bioterroristic strike is something Republicans and Democrats can easily agree on, a top congressional appropriator told a biodefense panel. This is actually an area where it has been pretty easy to bring Republicans and Democrats together on, said Representative Tom Cole, Republican in Oklahoma, chairman of the House Appropriations Subcommittee that oversees biomedical research. Yet the money hasn't been there, and no one person or agency is in charge of making sure the United States is ready for the next outbreak of Ebola or Zika or the next anthrax attack. Cole and other experts said at a meeting of the Blue Ribbon Study Panel on Biodefense at the Hudson Institute in Washington, D.C. We need some things around here to work on, plenty of things to fight about, Cole said. Let's get back in the habit of doing the right thing. For at least 2 decades, infectious disease experts have been urging the U.S. government to do more to keep the country prepared for outbreaks of diseases such as a new strain of flu, Ebola, and severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS. They've also noted that other countries have prepared biological weapons such as smallpox and anthrax, and have used chemical weapons such as Syria's use of sarin gas against its own citizens. Cole pointed to a great wave of interest after the 2001 anthrax attacks, and the federal government was spending about $6 billion a year on various scattered biodefense projects, according to a 2015 report from the Blue Ribbon Panel. But by the time we got to the Ebola response, those investments had been frittered away, said Robin Klein, former President Barack Obama's Ebola czar. Congress approved about $5 billion to fight Ebola in 2014. Influenza specialists have said repeatedly that the chance of a flu pandemic is 100%. Flu mutates constantly, and a major new strain emerges about every 20 years. The last one was the H1N1 swine flu in 2009, which was fairly mild, but worse epidemics are probable. When the bad day comes, it will be horrific, Cole said. The United States needs to be ready ahead of time with stockpiles of drugs, vaccines, and equipment plans for deploying them, and someone with the authority to make fast decisions. Cole and other experts said. The 2017 budget agreement worked out early Monday by Congress would provide just $57 million specifically to prepare for a new pandemic of influenza. You can't create it the day you need it, Cole said. Andrew Weber, a former Assistant Secretary of Defense for Nuclear, Chemical, and Biological Defense, agreed. We can't just wait until the day after an attack, said Weber, who is now at the Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. The quick response to the 2014 through 2016 Ebola epidemic shows how fast things can move, while the extremely slow and acrimonious response to the Zika outbreak shows just how badly wrong the process can go. We are becoming complacent again, Weber said. We had the Ebola wake-up call, and I am afraid we are falling asleep again. Cole said Monday's agreement to boost biomedical spending in the 2017 budget shows it's possible to get conservatives and liberals to agree. It's not a defense issue, he said. In the case of the president, it would be really good politics because it would be unexpected. President Donald Trump could win bipartisan acclaim if he made biodefense a cause, Cole said. I'm not arguing that we should do this from a political perspective. I'm arguing that it is good politics to do this, he added. This would be a good time for an administration to seize the opportunity, in my view. Cole also made the cause for public health emergency funds, something Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Disease, Thomas Frieden, former director of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and others have long argued for. Plain called such a fund essential. The need to go to Congress to get funding can needlessly slow the response, Klein said. We need to have policy directorate in place, he said. We don't need a Zika czar, and I should be the least disease czar appointed to the executive branch. The Ebola epidemic happened in part because the World Health Organization responded slowly, and in part because no government, including that of the United States, helped the three hard-hit countries of Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia build up healthcare systems, Klein and others argued. And that one wasn't so bad because the vast majority of the 28,000 infections and 11,000 deaths were right there in those three countries, Klein said. Ebola did not spread easily from person to person, and people in the hardest hit areas didn't travel much outside the region. Imagine that happening with a virus that spreads more easily in a country that sends thousands of travelers around the world every day, and a country where outside help is less welcome, Klein said. The scenario we are facing in the future is a much more dangerous and threatening scenario than the Ebola scenario, he added. We as a country and the world have a long way to go to be ready for a truly serious threat. Because it's so obvious, it may be hard to do, Cole said. The more sensible the suggestion, the less likely it is to happen in Washington, D.C., he said to Laughter. The next article that I have for you is off of Conservative Tribune. It says, Trump is planning executive order to bail from NAFTA. President Donald Trump has indicated that he has a plan for the North American Free Trade Agreement. And one thing seems certain, NAFTA will not remain the same deal that it has been for the last 23 years. In an interview with CBS Face the Nation on Saturday, Trump said he had every intention of terminating the agreement with Canada and Mexico before leaders of both countries contacted him about it. The president said that he got very nice calls from Mexican President and Canadian Prime Minister of Justin Trudeau asking him to negotiate with them. He said he told them that he would. It looks like Trump is going to put some of his deal-making skills to work on the agreement. However, he did not entirely back away from putting an end to it. If I'm not able to renegotiate NAFTA, I will terminate NAFTA, he said. The Hill reported that Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown, a NAFTA critic, planned to give Trump a 4-point plan to overhaul the agreement today. Trump signed an executive order Saturday for a study to determine whether the U.S. was being treated fairly by its trading partners and the 164-nation World Trade Organization, Newsmax reported. Moreover, Politico reported last Wednesday that unidentified White House officials said the president was preparing an executive order that could pull the U.S. out of the trade deal. It appears there are only two choices: renegotiate or terminate. A free trade agreement is great if all the countries involved play fairly. However, the U.S. has suffered because of bad trade deals since the agreement was enacted, and it looks like Trump is going to take care of it one way or the other. Next article that I have for you is off of InfoWars, and it says Roger Stone says renegotiation of Justice Kennedy imminent. Exclusive from the White House. President Trump has been informed of Justice Anthony Kennedy's impending resignation, meaning that the president will soon make his second pick for the Supreme Court, according to the White House sources speaking with Trump insider Roger Stone. This development, exclusive to InfoWars, is is the first confirmation of the 80-year-old's retirement, which the mainstream media has speculated for the past hour. U.S. Circuit Judge Thomas Hardiman, who was on Trump's shortlist when he selected Neil Gorsuch for the vacancy left by late Anton Scalia, is said to be the front runner for the opening seat. That said, the president will consider other candidates as well, including perhaps Judge Andrew Napolitano, a surprise candidate who's long been a favorite of Trump's. Kennedy, a Reagan appointee, described as a conservative centrist, holds a controlling vote on the court and has often decided cases by his one vote. Trump indicated this weekend that he heard rumors about Kennedy's retirement. I've heard the same rumors that a lot of people have heard, the president told media, and I have a lot of respect for that gentleman, a lot. Gorsuch was confirmed by the Senate on April the 7th after a lengthy confirmation battle. Next article is off of Bloomberg.com. It says pipeline companies push back against Trump's Buy American rule. There is some video on this if you want to pull it up and take a look at that. Try to get it stopped here so I can go on. There we go. Directive requiring U.S. pipeline companies to use American steel and iron in their projects is testing President Donald Trump's ability to keep his promises to two industries on opposing sides of the issue. In comments to the U.S. Department of Commerce, which is crafting the so-called Buy American plan, pipeline companies and their trade groups argued the change would increase costs and disrupt operations. Steel companies, meanwhile, embraced the policy as an opportunity to take advantage of the country's surging oil and gas production, and Trump has vowed to support both. The debate goes to how the president will be able to reconcile the conflicting edges of his America First platform. During his campaign, Trump promised to break energy loose from the leash of regulation and protect steel from the bite of unfair competition. Market forces, though, many may force him to make a choice, according to Stephanie Miller, a senior analyst at Hype LLC. I don't think those conflicts are insignificant, Miller said in a telephone interview. You cannot have Buy American and the most cost-effective pipeline in the current scenario. In January 24th memorandum, the president gave the Commerce Department 180 days to develop a plan for requiring retrofitted, repaired, or expanded pipelines to use U.S. production materials to the maximum extent possible. The decision has prompted almost 100 letters to the Commerce Department during a comment period that ended April the 7th, split about evenly between endorsement and opposition. The pipeline industry is pushing back, saying the rule could delay or reduce new projects, a possibility that would run counter to the Trump administration's goal of expanding U.S. energy production and infrastructure, according to a joint letter submitted to the Commerce Department by groups including the the Association of Oil Pipelines and the American Petroleum Institute. Though steelmakers tout the potential for increased demand, energy companies argue domestic manufacturers aren't equipped to make all the materials required by their projects. Does the domestic industry have the ability to quickly come in and replicate that capability? The answer is not easily or not quickly, said John Mothersole, an analyst at IHS in Washington. There's also a substantial amount of pipe that's already been purchased for projects. The Williams Company Incorporated, for example, has more than 1 million feet of pipe in storage for its Atlantic Sunrise project and almost 500,000 feet for its Constitution line. That more domestic steel isn't used in projects may be a reflection of the circumstances, said Christine Tezak, Managing Director of Research at Clearview Energy Partners, LLC in Washington. If the capacity isn't there, it won't materialize overnight, she said. A final decision could be something less than what appears to be an inflexible target. The end result will likely be a compromise that implements the new rules gradually, Miller said. Pipeline companies' request to exempt projects with shipper commitments or pending permits is a reasonable one, she said. It's unlikely companies will have the rug pulled out from under them. The ultimate outcome is more likely to favor the steel industry, said William Renich, a fellow at the Stinson Center. While Trump can and has helped the oil and gas industry on a range of issues, from drilling leases to permitting, the steel industry will mainly rely on the U.S.-made order and trade protections for relief, he said. If he aligns himself with the pipeline people, he's more likely to get major pushback from the steel guys, Renich said. The oil companies owe him a lot, and they'll live to fight another day. The administration has already made protectionism moves, exploring whether steel imports hinder national security under the Trade Expansion Act, and asking the Commerce Department to investigate claims that rival Chinese manufacturers colluded to fix prices and undercut American competitors. The industry debate and need for public input could delay a final rule for years, said Caitlin Weber, a Bloomberg intelligence analyst, in a report. And any final rule will probably include exceptions, such as exempting imports for free trade agreement partners. The end result will be a more limited rule than initially promised. They'll find a way to massage this so he can say he's doing something for everybody, Miller said. Next article is off of Liberty Writers. Street is ruined. President Trump just issued an ultimatum to banks that has them horrified. Wall Street has officially lost its mind after President Donald Trump's massive announcement today. During an interview with Bloomberg, Trump blew the nation away with this ultimate declaration that has big banks going nuts. Donald Trump just said he may reinstate the Glass-Steagall Act. In case you didn't know, the Glass-Steagall Act was created after the Great Depression to separate commercial and investment banking. Bill Clinton repealed it in 1999, which caused the housing market collapse and the Great Recession. Of course, you can bet the big banks aren't too happy about this at all. After all, the end of the Glass-Steagall Act made them all super rich at the cost of the American people. Of course, nothing is certain yet. President Trump made that abundantly clear when the interviewer asked him specifics of the plan. There's some people that want to go back to the old system, right? So we're going to take a look at it, he said. So while the leftist liars in the mainstream media may pretend like Trump works for the banks, I'd say his actions speak for themselves. And then the article says here, if you're glad to see a U.S. president, regardless of the party, for once caring about the people, then make this story known. And the next article that I have for you is off of Liberty Headlines. It says FBI court filing reveals grand jury targeted Hillary Clinton. This originally came off of Judicial Watch and says Judicial Watch today released new State Department documents, including a declaration from FBI Special Agent E.W. Freestrap, the supervisor of the agency's investigation into Hillary Clinton's email activities, stating that the former Secretary of State was the subject of grand jury investigation related to her BlackBerry email accounts. The declaration was produced in response to Judicial Watch's lawsuit seeking to force Secretary of State Rex Tillerson to take steps to recover the emails of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and other U.S. Department of State employees. The lawsuit was originally filed against then Secretary of State John Kerry. The Trump State Department filing includes details of the agency's continuing refusal to refer the Clinton email issue to the Justice Department as the law requires. In the filing, Freestrap declares under penalty of perjury that the FBI obtained grand jury subpoenas related to the BlackBerry email accounts, which produced no responsive materials, as the requested data was outside the retention time utilized by those providers. On April the 30th of 2015, Judicial Watch sued Kerry after the State Department failed to take action on a letter sent to Kerry notifying him of the unlawful removal of the Clinton emails and requesting that he initiate enforcement action pursuant to the Federal Records Act, including working through the Attorney General to recover the emails. After initially being dismissed by District Court, Judicial Watch's lawsuit was revived on appeal by a decision of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit on December the 27th of 2016. While at the State Department, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton conducted official government business using unsecured email server and email accounts. Her top aides and advisors also used non-state.gov email accounts to conduct official business. Clinton left office in February on February the 1st of 2013. Final article that I have for you is off of Liberty Headlines, and it says, swamp draining, evasive for Trump administration. Draining the swamp, a candidate Trump metaphorically said he wanted to do to Washington-fetid bureaucracy, requires manpower to get rid of all the muck. But various factions on the right are increasingly concerned with the slow and or uneven pace and direction of the Trump administration's placement of personnel within executive departments to do the hard work of reform. Politico on Monday lent credence to earlier reports that one reason for the slow pace of executive appointments, more on those numbers in a moment, that is different right-leaning factions exist and they disagree about who is in charge. Many, perhaps most of Trump's cabinet appointments were greeted with acclaim from most of the otherwise semi-warring factions on the right. Most of Trump's conservative supporters were also thrilled that Trump was so aggressive about appointing landing teams of mostly conservative staffers to help oversee the transition of executive agencies to new management. But what didn't mesh, according to numerous reports long before the new Politico story, were the combinations of the landing teams and the cabinet picks. The problem, say the reports, is that the cabinet secretaries had little or no role in choosing their own transition teams, and some of those landing team members were not experienced hands in their particular agency's subject area, but rather, to quote Politico, most young Trump campaign aides with little experience in government. Result, as per the May 1st report, says, these White House installed chaperones have often clashed with the cabinet secretaries they were assigned to monitor. The tensions have escalated for weeks, prompting a recent meeting among Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, and other administration officials. With the landing team and the cabinet secretaries pulling in different directions, and with Trump himself accustomed to dealing with only a small inner circle and thus perhaps not attuned to the importance of filling the federal bureaucracy with as many like-minded appointees as possible, conservative grumbling has grown for weeks about the hundreds of empty positions in federal departments that are a new president's prerogative to fill. As conservative columnist Byron York, most friendly to Trump, wrote in early April, Trump's habit of relying on only a tight circle of people who were either related to him or had been with him for a very long time has led to an acute staffing problem across the administration and also to high-profile infighting in the White House. As of that writing, York reported, according to a database compiled by the Partnership for Public Service and Washington Post, out of the 553 important positions that require Senate confirmation, and that is by no means all the political appointments Trump has to make, only 22 Trump nominees have been confirmed, while another 53 have either been formally nominated or are awaiting formal announcement of their nomination. That leaves 478 jobs with no nominee at all. Again, those are just the jobs that require Senate approval. There are nearly 4,000 jobs across the whole bureaucracy that are filled by people serving at the pleasure of the president's team without meeting ordinary civil service requirements. Filling all those slots takes time, to be sure, but compared to past administrations, this one reportedly is well behind the ordinary schedule. York, for one, observed the president will have to entrust with power a new set of Republicans who weren't on the long march of the Trump Republican primary campaign and who aren't related to him by blood or marriage. The Politico report suggests that the logjam may begin to be broken because the administration is finally deferring to the cabinet members. Now the White House seems inclined to let cabinet secretaries decide whether they want their landing team members to stay, the website reported. At some cabinet departments, the advisors have already been hired for permanent jobs, while other advisors have moved elsewhere in the administration or left altogether. Either way, the conservative complaints about staffing difficulties have not detracted from the overall conservative satisfaction with the new regime. As CNN reported last Friday in a story called "Trump Wins Over Conservatives for Now," both the conservative grassroots and conservative thought leaders pronounce themselves firmly behind Trump because they believe he is sticking to his campaign promises. The question is if he'll fill all those positions with people who can actually implement the new policies. And that's all I have for you this morning. If you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up, share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news, and don't forget to subscribe, and that way you'll stay informed. Have a great day.